I love that this song is coming right after the blessing for the children. This is a song I wrote very recently, and it's about, I forgot the chapter and verse in Matthew, but it's when there are a bunch of group of children all come up to Jesus, and they're sort of crowding around him because they want to just be with him, and the disciples are like, get away from him, he doesn't have time for this. And Jesus says, no, let them come to me, because it's people like children who will inherit heaven. And so I was thinking about, well, they never talk about what happened when the children actually came up and started talking to Jesus and hanging around with him. The verses sort of stop, and I was thinking, that would be really joyous. I mean, there'd be a lot of laughing and joking and childlike behavior, and you could see if there was like a soccer ball, they'd be all kicking it around and just like going crazy. So this song sort of is about that. And it's called Come to Me. Come to me like a child. Come to me, your heart open wide. You are simple and you are wise, the light of heaven in your eyes. Come to me, come to me, come to me, like a child. Here to protect every beat of your heart and every step. Come to me, come to me, come to me, like a child. Whoa, 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 you are wise, the light of heaven fills your eyes. Here to protect every beat of your heart and every step. Come to me, 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 like a child.
So good morning, I'm Elizabeth. As most of you know, I'm on our board here, and I have the distinct honor of presenting Kaylin McAllister and Eric from the Laughing Bear Bakery. I met her a few years ago at a fundraiser, and I remember then thinking, wow, this is amazing. So I'm not going to tell her story, they can tell it, but our board did visit them on Monday. And we had so much fun, first of all. And the bakery was wonderful. We got to meet some of the employees. So without further ado, Kaylin and Eric.
Hard to follow Brian. It's pretty amazing. I'm going to start a little off what I normally do. I'm going to tell a story about being in prison. You know, the first day I actually walked into a prison, I was scared to death. I had to walk across the yard, and I didn't know what to expect. I wasn't afraid of the men in the prison. I was afraid I didn't have anything to offer them. So I walked into, it was up at Bowling Green, and the chapel was just a big room. And in the room were lockers for each of the 10 different recognized groups. So we had a Buddhist group, we had Native Americans, Catholic, Christian, et cetera, et cetera. And so the Native Americans, it turned out, met the same night that the Buddhists did. And they came in and they got their stuff out of the locker and they went to another part of the campus and did their drumming circle while we did our service. And then at the end they came back. They put their stuff in and we all went to the door. You can't just walk out the door in prison, you have to wait for them to call the yard. So they called movement and everybody left except one of the Native Americans. And he was leaning against the door. And when I went up to him, he said, "Najoko Nailo." And I said, "I don't know what you're saying." And he just kind of glared at me, and he walked out. And so this became a weekly event. Every time I went up there on Tuesday night, "Najoko Nailo." What the heck? So I kind of did a roundabout way of solving the problem. I have a Native American friend, so I said, why don't you become a volunteer in prison for the Native American group? It's called a VIC, being a VIC. And so she had to go through training. It took her 6 months. She finally got in about a year later. And meanwhile, every week, "Najoko Nailo." So we walked in the first night, I'm so excited, you know, they go off, we come back together, we go to leave, and here he is, "Najoko Nailo." So he walks out, and I turned to her and I said, okay, so what's he saying? And she's saying, I don't know. She said, you know, he's Apache, I'm Shawnee. We never traded. And so this went on every week for more weeks, and finally Vicki was really good about figuring out different languages. So finally one night we're driving home and she said, I found out, I think I know what he's saying. And I said, yeah. And she said, well, he's kind of wishing you a safe trip home. He's saying, don't fall off your horse. And those words have stuck with me. I was in Farmington as a chaplain for 5.5 years. And I noticed that guys, before they would get out, about 2 weeks before they were released, they would come up to me and go, hey chap, we don't even want to get out. We won't be able to get a job. Well, we get out with $8.50 in our pocket. We go to McDonald's, have a real meal, and then we're busted and we're on the street. And so we'll be back in prison. And the day, about a week before I retired, I told the guys, I'm going to do something. When I retire, I'm going to start a business that only hires ex-offenders. So I retired at the end of April 2015. By November, middle of November 2015, we were up with a bakery. Now, I put out a request to all my friends to help fund this, and I came up with $2,000. And we moved into a bakery. We rented space. It was Crondelet Bakery. And we moved in there. I had 2 employees. We didn't have any ingredients. We didn't have anything to cook with. We had no customers. Najoko Nailo. So within 2 weeks we were busted. I paid our rent, we bought some ingredients, we were using the pans at the bakery, we found somebody bought a little bit of our stuff. So I'm sitting there in my head and my hands going, well, I guess this is going to be the shortest business in the world. We lasted 2 weeks. And all of a sudden, I get a call from this guy. And he goes, you don't know me. He said, but I heard what you're trying to do. And he said, I'm the CEO of a company. And he said, I have 80 employees and I want to order a pie for each of my employees for Thanksgiving. And he said, besides that, he says, I want to pay up front. And I'm on my way over there right now with a check. And I'm sitting there going, so he showed up, we did the 80 pies, they got us through till January. We got a small grant, which got us through to the spring, et cetera, et cetera. We moved into a church basement, which was qualified for food production. And we were there, and up and down, you know. Every time I thought we were not going to make it, somebody would come up with a grant or a donation. And I'm sitting there going, and finally, working in the basement in a rental space was very difficult because, you know, you had people who were working before you and after you, and, you know, we needed more time, we couldn't get more time. So we did a massive fundraiser to buy a building. And we ended up 2 years ago, we bought a building, and we moved into it, we cleaned it up, and we've had something like 48 employees go through our program. And the Missouri numbers for recidivism is something like 65 to 75% go back to prison within the first 5 years. We've had 3 people go back. Only 3, and 2 were minor parole violations. 1 was something pretty serious. But we're doing something right there. You know, it's a community. And Eric's one of our people who came out of prison. If I don't hold the mic, I'm going to let him talk a little bit about what it's done for him.
Well, good morning. What a privilege it is to be here. You guys have been so welcoming and hospitable, and that's really nice. So I want to start telling you a little bit about my story and how the bakery has helped me. In 2003, I was incarcerated, and I was facing a 20-year prison sentence. Now, I had always been a pretty optimistic person. Some people's cups are half full, some are half empty. I think my cup was completely full, but there was like an extra compartment for marshmallows or something. That's how optimistic I was. But all of a sudden, I was in this situation where I was feeling despair and discouragement and this sense of hopelessness. But within a few months, I decided that I couldn't spend my 20 years that way. So I chose to work through those programs. I chose to be optimistic, or work through those feelings, and just try to make the prison experience something positive, make the best of it. Now, that's not how everybody approaches prison, but that's how I did it. And the first thing I wanted to do was find a sense of purpose, so I applied for a tutor job, and I began to tutor guys who were getting their GED. I got involved with chapel services. I took lots of programs to challenge my thinking and kind of motivate me to be a better person. I got jobs that taught me a lot of job skills. I was doing everything I could to be a better person and prepare for the day I walk out of prison. I made friends who were positive and were working on the same things I were. I even learned to train dogs while I was in prison in a program. So I really tried to use that time well. And 15 years later, the day came where I got parole and I was able to walk out of prison. And I thought I was ready. I mean, I had prepared for it. I had everything I could. I had got accepted into a program in St. Louis that provided housing for me. They provided assistance with bills until I became stable. I had a pretty good support system with my family. So I thought this is going to be easy. But the biggest obstacle for me was employment. For several reasons. One, I had this 15-year gap. That's kind of hard to write down on previous work experience on an application. How do you explain that, you know? Also, there's a lot of places that don't want to hire felons, you know? Some people do, some don't. Some have policies against it, some are hesitant. But in my mind, that translated to nobody will hire me. Those were the thoughts I began to have. And I was really discouraged again, and I just had this anxiety about going to an interview and being rejected. You know, I had friends who would, they would apply for a job. They were in a similar situation to me. They thought they had it. They were upfront about their criminal record. And 2 days later, the HR would say, actually, we changed our mind. We're not going to hire you. And so I saw their discouragement. So I really was not excited about applying for work. But one day I was looking through a little pamphlet that has like a list of organizations that help people re-enter society. And I saw Laughing Bear Bakery in there. And I had heard of Laughing Bear Bakery because I had been in a prison that Kaylin had been the chaplain at, so I knew who she was. But but I also had heard other people talk about this bakery that only hired felons. And I said, aha, I'm qualified. This is the job for me. So I reached out to Kaylin, and she gave me an interview within a few days, and that day she hired me on the spot. And that was really kind of the beginning of a change for me. I worked there for about 6 months. Went to a factory after that. I worked there 4 years. During that time, I kind of stayed in touch with the bakery. She asked me to be on the board maybe about 2 years ago, I think. And then last year, she asked me if I'd be interested in coming back to kind of help build the retail side of it. Because up until that point, we had been mostly wholesale, but we had the new building and we wanted to open up to the public. So I said, sure. And that worked pretty good for me because I was kind of in the process of starting my own business too, but I needed some more money to make that happen, because I do some graphic design and marketing and stuff in the area. So I've been back there for about a year. But I say all that to say that, because I want to talk about the impact that Laughing Bear had in my life. I mean, it didn't just give me a job. It was much more than that. Kaylin gave me a second chance. At a point when I thought nobody else would, she did. She brought me in. The people at the bakery were all accepting, whether it's the other employees, the board members, the volunteers, customers have been accepting, they've been kind. And that compassion and acceptance has really impacted my life in a meaningful way. Kaylin told a story, so I'm going to tell a short one. Some of you have probably heard it, but it's one of my favorite stories, and I think it relates to my story in a way too. A long time ago, there was a man who would go to the beach, and he would write in the morning, but before he would write, he would walk along the beach. And one particular morning, it was after a storm, and he had seen all these starfish had washed up on the shore. And so he was seeing that, and then in the distance, he saw a little boy approaching him. And every now and then, the little boy would bend down and do something. And he's like, what's he doing? Well, as the boy got closer, he saw that the boy was picking up starfish and throwing them in the ocean. And he says, young man, what are you doing? He says, there was a storm last night. These starfish can't get back there themselves. I have to return them to the ocean. And the old man said, are you kidding? There's 10,000 starfish out here. There's no way that you can make a difference. The little boy thought for a moment, and he picked up another starfish, and he looked at it, and he threw it as far as he could out into the ocean, and he said, it made a difference to that one. And I'm a starfish. And the people I work with at the bakery were starfish, and Laughing Bear has made a difference in our lives and so many people's lives over the years. Not just Kaylin, but the volunteers, the board members, the customers, people who support financially. That's all made a difference, and I'm just really grateful for that. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Kaylin. And I'm going to sit down.
Laughing Bear, we do a little bit more than just teach people to bake. It is a community, it's a community where people don't have to be afraid of who they are. And they share with each other. We've had people who come in for an interview and they don't have the money to get a bus to get home. And I've had our workers jump up and give them their bus pass. People share, like when people are getting apartments, when our workers are getting apartments, I put out an email saying, we need a microwave, we need this, we need that, and people step up and give it to them. One of the biggest problem I have is that people call me up who want to work at the bakery who don't have a felony. and I'll ask them, I'll go, do you have a felony? And they'll go, why, no. And I go, well, I can't hire you. My suggestion is you go get arrested. And then when you get out of prison in a couple of years, you come look us up. So I want to just leave it open for a few questions. If anybody has any questions about anything, I'd be glad to answer them, or I'll make up something. I'm pretty good at making up stuff. Any question?
Well, I have one. How did you get your name?
Laughing Bear. We had a friend of mine who went into Bowling Green with me, the Native American woman. She ended up doing all our paperwork. She got us incorporated. She got us tax exempt. I mean, we wouldn't be here without her. But she developed breast cancer and she passed away. And I wanted to honor her, but her name was Victoria. And we couldn't call it Victoria's Bakery because people would want to buy underwear, So In her tradition, her totem was a bear, and during Sundance, she would actually turn into a bear during Sundance, but she laughed a lot, hence Laughing Bear Bakery. And we do have a picture of her on Facebook. We're going to put it back up again in her native regalia. Beautiful woman, yeah.
Here's a question. Oops.
On the basis of all that you've accomplished, I mean, you've faced a lot of challenges. What's kind of like the current challenge that you're facing to get to that next level that you want to be at?
Right now, it's been an ongoing challenge is to meet payroll. You know, we sell to a lot of places in St. Louis. We sell to Washington University. They're out for the summer. We'll pick them up again in August. We sell to Straub's. We sell to Art of Entertaining, Abacow, places in St. Louis you might not have heard of, Local Harvest. But it's with the ingredients going up as fast as it is. I mean, last week we used Ghirardelli chocolate only. I mean, we make everything from scratch, and it went up from $3 a bag to like $5 a bag.
Wow.
And so we're trying to balance that so that we don't walk out of the market, you know. So it's always like my nightmares, will I not be able to make payroll? So that's the thing that's always haunting me. We get grants, but grants don't cover payroll. You know, they don't cover active involvement. We just got a grant. We have solar on our roof, but it was done by the man who sold us the building, so it's helping a little bit, but this building was once 3 buildings. And so we just got a grant to put all the electric into one. We have 3 different bills a month. And so now we're looking at upgrading our solar, and we have a grant that will cover that. So, you know, we need another freezer. You know, we're growing. The more people, you know, the one thing that people don't realize is we're not only helping people coming out of prison get a job, but we're helping people who are not being victims, because these men and women are working now and they're not victimizing anyone. So it's a great idea. The bigger we get, the more we could do. I'd like to expand. We have a room that we could turn into another workspace and add some more work tables and hire more people. But in order for that to happen, we need to sell more products. So it's kind of, you know, medyo ko na yun, right? Hope that
So I know that you were on the Today Show, I think you said last year. I think people might be interested in hearing about that not only are you known around here, you all, but also in the country now.
Yeah, we get orders from all over. We got one big grant came out of Boston, and we had to fly up there and do a presentation. And that was really remarkable. I had the person who went up there with me was the supervisor of our bakery for a while, Peter. And he had this horrible habit of every other word was the F word. And we were getting up in front of 600 people. And I said, Peter, whatever you do. So I got up and did my speech, and then Peter got up there, and I'm sitting in the front row watching him. And he's going on, and he's doing real good, and I'm proud of him. And then all of a sudden, he goes, and I pointed my finger at him, and he stopped mid-F. But I think everybody knew where he was going. But he got a standing ovation. I didn't. We were on the Today Show. They flew in. The producer flew in from California. We didn't get to meet the Today Show people or nothing like that. And they were there, they filming us, and then they edited it out, you know, they filmed all day and got it down to like, what was it, 12 minutes or something?
Yeah, it's still on the front page of our webpage too, if people.
Yeah, if you go to laughingbearbakery.org, you can click on the bottom and see the interview. We've been on Channel 5, we've been on Channel 2, we've been on Channel 9, we've been in the front page of the Post. People really support this effort. And I've only met one person who was, you know, when we moved into this neighborhood, I was worried that the neighbors wouldn't like us, and they love us. You know, they're very supportive. I mean, people are beautiful. Yeah, there's only one negative comment I got the whole time we've been here. So we also, I want to point out that on our board of directors, besides Eric, we have my former boss, who was the deputy warden in Farmington, Frank Gann. He's on the board, and we had the former director of the whole DOC, Department of Corrections, George Lombardi. And George passed away last year from cancer, but he was on our board, and he was encouraging the prisons to support us, and et cetera. Sure.
I just wondered when you would get discouraged throughout the ups and downs of everything, what has been your inspiration? What has been your incentive to think it's all going to be okay? If you have.
Well, I think everybody who works there has a sense of humor, and I do too, and I think the employees keep me going. You know, they tease me about things, and, you know, they call me, they have a nickname for me. We have nicknames for everybody who works there. They call me Columbo. Because I'll be giving out instructions, and then I'll go, and one more thing. So it's working with a group of people. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's in divine order that I was scheduled to be here. You know, I got here late. My church is in the process of moving, and we have like some miscellaneous items that I'm in charge of the inventory committee. I'm also on the board of directors. My name is Leonard Smith.
Okay.
And if you contact me after the day, we've got a refrigerator that's used. We've got like a ton of things I won't even go into. But if you contact me today, and you can provide the manpower and truck to move it, you got it. We've already given some things to this Unity Church and other Unity churches. And so it was divine order. We're scheduled to go to Collinsville, Illinois, and with the rain coming down in buckets, I canceled that one. I called Benita and said, give me direction to your church again, even though I did it before. Do it again. So I ran a little late, but contact me after this. And we got miscellaneous surplus inventory, and you're talking to the person who controls that.
And so go I know. Okay, so if there's no other questions, I'll turn it back to the next one.
Thank you so much for being here. You know, we always reach out, and I know I'm always asking, how can I help, you know? And this is one way I was listening to everything, and I had a few ideas. But we'll talk after service. I really loved the visit we made to the bakery. The people there are just wonderful. They are wonderful. Just like me and you and being in here. No difference. And you know, we believe in oneness, don't we?
Amen.
We believe in looking through the appearance to the heart of individuals. we know that in the allness there is of spirit, we're all one. And if I were to draw a big circle, everyone would be included in it as a dot. And when we come into the awareness of our oneness, when we come into awareness that we can reach out, in so many ways. You may not can be hired there, but I'm sure Caleb would accept a volunteer. There are many ways, and even if it's just in partaking of the delicious treats that they produce. That there's always ways to, and we know about opening our hearts and letting God in, right? And let Spirit work through us, because we're a product of that. Our numbers may not be our church capacity of 120, but we're here. And when we hold on to the thought, as we recited this morning, as we move through and as we keep a positive attitude, we trust that what we need will be showered upon us. Prime example, and when Leonard said that, I said, wow, slap, because I should have remembered Unity Christ Church when we visited you the other day, because there may still be things that are there.
It is.
Yeah, and they would love it if they wouldn't have to haul it off somewhere.
Amen.
Yeah, so God is good, isn't he? What a contact. We're here together, and wow, we've been touched by Spirit. So let's take a moment, because, we know that it doesn't come out of thin air, but it comes from the presence and the power and the divine energy working in and through us to reach out. So let's just take a moment in prayer. Let's take a moment in meditation. We want to take that deep breath and move from the head down into our hearts. I know most of us in this room are already in that heart region as we listen to a child of God express how God is working through them. So we take a deep breath and we move down into our heart region. We give thanks for the presence and the power that is there. We give thanks for the presence and power that sustains us in all things, that is us, expressing through us and reaching out to those in need of knowing that they are worthy, that they are blessed, that they are needed, and most of all, above all, that they are loved. So as you move into that place deep within you, taking a little step deeper, step over the threshold of your inner chamber. Feel the rush of peace. Feel the rush of spirit. Feel that love that is unconditional, always available. And breathe a quick sigh. And take a moment in this quiet to just know that you are more than a human being. That you are first and foremost a spiritual being, one with the divine. So just take a moment right here, right now, in the quiet, nothing to do but be. Just be what you were created to be for just a few seconds in the quiet. We feel the joy in our hearts this morning as we say yes to the truth that is unfolding in this room in this very moment. We're so grateful. Our daily word this morning says that grace doesn't happen to us. We're grateful that grace is expressing through us in every moment of every day and in every way. We open our hearts and our minds to receive the blessings that were prepared for us before the beginning of the foundation of this universe. Oh, we are so blessed. So